This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. That is Cam Wolfe. How you doing, baby? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Big O, what's up with you?
Loving life, man. I'm liking those Tua videos. I was feeling good for him when I saw those videos. Why? Because if it's hard to get motivated for someone that may not be supportive of you, and when he walks in that building now, he's working hard for himself, but he also knows that maybe there's somebody working for him now. And I think that that's really, really, man, in life, we all need support, right? Whether it's your child or whether it's your parents or whether it's your teammate, whether it's your coworker, we all support each other one way or another to, help each other and guide each other and build each other together, help each other and strengthen each other. And I think that's something that Tua, that's an extra motivation that he has now, that he's working, and then he knows others have good intentions on his behalf.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of times it's underestimated how much that support system, how much the public support and private support matters for a well-being, especially of a young quarterback. There's so much out there that you can see, whether it's on TV, whether it's on social media. If you know, hey, this guy's got my back, that helps me go do my job, play more confident. So I'm looking forward to seeing Tua year 3. He's already out there getting work, with the Perform team out there. So, this is another year for him in a new situation. I am curious how long it takes him to pick up the playbook and the new staff and all the elements, but it does seem like it's positive vibes out here, which is what you want if you're a Dolphins fan.
I think actually it's going to be easier for him to pick everything up now because he has a group of people that are going to be working with him about this offense, and it starts with the head coach. So nobody's going to understand this and teach it better to him than Mike McDaniel, right? And it's not 3 guys trying to construct a playbook and trying to create an identity. No. The identity is there. Now it's finding the talent to fill that identity and the scheme that they have. So I think it's a lot more different because he actually walks into a situation where they already understand the foundations of what they're teaching, which makes it a lot easier to pass it on to the individual.
Right. And one thing we haven't talked about a lot, but they hired Blvd to be, one of their assistants, a QB guy, a guy who's been with Russell Wilson, been with Trevor Lawrence, been with a few different other QBs.
Brett Favre, dude,
exactly. You get a whole lot of different styles of quarterbacks, which helps you shape an offense around your specific quarterback, which I think is important. A lot of times you see coaches try to put a square peg in a round hole. You need to figure out what your guy does well. Don't worry about his weaknesses. Worry about his strengths. And how can I form an offense? How can I form a off-season plan to maximize that? Which is why, you hear Mike McDaniel say, I'm going to get all that greatness out of him. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. What does it look like? What is your form of getting all that greatness out of him look like? Whether it's Mike McDaniel, whether it's Blvd, you have the system. Now let's see the plan. And that, I'm not a guy, I think I've told you this, Big O, I'm not a guy who gets excited about OTAs, mini camp, all that stuff doesn't really matter to me till training camp. But that is one thing I am interested to see in OTAs, in mini camp, the early stages of what it looks like. How different is it from the previous offense? How close is it to Alabama? These elements are something I think we'll talk about a lot this offseason leading up into the season.
All I was seeing is that thing he was doing with his feet. Man, I try to do that. Knees get disconnected, ankles get blown up. I'm falling all over the place. I'm like, what the hell was that, dude? That was one hell of an exercise. And then he throws a dart to the guy in front of him, 20 yards downfield. So that was actually pretty cool to watch him. And then throwing that medicine ball too. Which
Big old,
that,
those foot drills are harder than you would expect. Like I played football growing up, and even I would struggle with some of those things. Now I know I'd be terrible at them. Knowing as much as as poorly as I eat. But like that, those footwork drills are hard, and it definitely is key. If you watch, and I think it's cool. I'm really a big football nut, but if you watch football drills and then watch games, sometimes you can see the football drills in the particular game. You can see a quarterback moving their feet exactly like they will in the drill, and that's cool for me because you see the behind the scenes work translate to us. Whether it's stepping up in the pocket, whether it's sliding left or right, those things from a quarterback. And a lot of times people will watch the video and say, "This is silly. Why are you doing this?" Well, there's a reason to the madness of why they do these things.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. No doubt about it. By the way, you can follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe there and catch his work also at the NFL Network. All right, Cam, what else are you hearing now? Is the coaching staff done? Is there anything else they're trying to add? Any other elements to either the coaching staff, front office, anything you're hearing?
Yeah, I'm expecting the coaching staff to be done. Typically, there's front office movement after the draft. That's typically when stuff happens. So I'm not, Chris Greer's still back. So it's his crew. I'm not expecting any major changes. Maybe somebody decides to leave, their contract's up, or somebody's brought in, but I'm not expecting anything major on that front. The coaching deal was going to be the big major change, and that should be done. I know they were talking about getting a defensive assistant with a veteran name. They were talking to, a few different names there. I think they hired a guy named Slowick, which I don't know him very well, but that was the guy that ended up hiring in that defensive assistant role. So, maybe at some point later they figure out if they get a former head coach they really feel comfortable with and put him in the role. But otherwise, I think this is going to be your staff going forward. And, I'm sure you guys talked about it the last few days, but seeing some of those legend names come up, like a Sam Madison
Walker,
like a Patrick Surtain, like a Wes Walker. Those will be really cool for longtime Dolphins fans because it's connecting the past with the future. We talk a lot about the past as the good old days and the future as the mediocrity. Maybe you can connect those tissues. So I've said it on the show. I wasn't a big fan of the move to get rid of Gerald Alexander, but I am excited to see what Sam Madison and some of these guys do bring to the table.
As I've mentioned to other guys, I kind of, you kind of see what he's doing when he adds Frank and then he adds Applebaum and even a Lampierre, because let's call him Lampierre now. Let's no more because he's no longer in charge. So, but it's
let me ask you. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like,
I like it. I like it because I like
it, but he's still there.
But he's fourth in line. It's where he belongs. Like, he can now learn instead of putting the man in a position that he wasn't prepared for and you set him up for failure. Dude, it's like, Cam, it's like saying, all right, listen, we want you to take over ABC News tonight. That's not my thing, dude.
Yep.
So you're going to put me there and I'm not going to do a good job.
Right.
And they're going to compare me to Britt Hume and Ted Koppel and everybody else that's done. And it's like, no, dude, that's a sportscaster. That's not a guy that's supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
So that's what I felt like. He might be a really good O-line coach 5-10 years from now. But what I love is that Mike was smart enough to say, hey, man, why don't you stay here with us, learn this new scheme. He's like a level above quality control coach, basically. He's like an offensive line assistant. So this is awesome. This is a chance for Mike to groom a guy for the future, because that's what he has. He has the Frank guy as the top guy behind him, of course.
Yep.
Then he's got Applebaum right behind him, and Lampierre. So and that's what I was going to tell you, that's what, when you hire Sam Madison, who's been 3 years in Kansas City, and then you bring his buddy in Surtain, who will comfortably work under him because they know each other. They're like brothers.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, if Sam gets elevated, Surtain will get that next spot. So what I'm saying to you is, I kind of feel like he's building the staff in a way where there's a person waiting in line almost, if they need it, in order to do that. So for Lampierre, God bless him, man. Now he gets to go and maybe actually be in the position that he's supposed to, and then gradually work his way up as he figures this whole thing out. you could tell that it's not his fault. It's Flo's fault. He put him in a position that he wasn't ready for. I blame Flo. I don't blame, Lampierre. So, the nickname is gone. The man is no longer the O-line coach. Let's give him his due and call him by his name.
Two things I want to touch on what you mentioned about the coaching staff. Two things I noticed immediately when they put everything together. The two offensive positions they targeted most in that group were tight ends and offensive line. So Frank Smith comes from a background of he coached tight ends, he coached offensive lines. You bring in John Embry, who's a key assistant there. He's a tight end coach his whole career. He's also the assistant head coach. You bring in the actual O-line coach. You keep your previous O-line coach. And so you're having these two positions propped up. So that tells me those are positions that Mike McDaniel prioritized. And he probably feels good about himself. Like, obviously, you bring in Wes Walker, but Mike McDaniel comes from a position where he's worked a lot with receivers and running backs. He's worked in that run game. So he feels really comfortable in that. You bring in Darrell Bevel, who can handle quarterbacks along with yourself. But the O-line and the tight ends are the O-line in particular, we've highlighted as an area they needed to improve. So that's clear. But tight ends is also very interesting to me. And this is something that I'm going to talk about on NFL Network today. Mike Gesicki is a big free agent target here. And so one thing I'm interested to see is how their evaluation of Mike Gesicki and how he fits in the scheme goes in. So you've got a guy in Mike Gesicki who is really good at several things. Blocking is not one of them. Let's be real.
He's not. And I don't think he'll ever become a great blocker.
And to be honest, if Mike Gesicki was on the show with us today, he would tell you, that's not my game. And if you look at some of the numbers and look at him lined up, he's out in the slot most of his snaps. He's really a big receiver more than anything. So you have to see how much do you value a guy like that. And I'm torn on it because that's one of Tua's top weapons. Tua loves him. He loves Tua. And so when you're trying to rebuild this thing on an offense that already is lacking skill players, do you want to get rid of one of your top skill players? Maybe if you get a bigger fish to come in, but can you create a 49ers based offense where the zone run scheme is really effective with a tight end that doesn't block? And if you can't, then you have to have another tight end. So then you're essentially putting Mike Gesicki as a slot receiver. Is he your best use as slot receiver? As if he's strictly a slot receiver? So I think there's a lot of interesting questions to be had. I think the franchise tag just started today. The number is like a little less than 11 million for Mike Gesicki, which isn't a bad number. But, I wouldn't be shocked if they let him go. I wouldn't be shocked if they let him test the market and he finds more money elsewhere, finds a better role elsewhere, and they end up saying, hey, we're going to run it with Hunter Long, who we drafted last year, and re-sign Durham Smythe. And we're going to sign another receiver in free agency that we feel fits like our best there. So I think that's a move that would upset a lot of Dolphins fans, and it may bother Tua as well, but it wouldn't shock me given what I know about the 49ers offense and given what I know about how Mike Gesicki may fit in particular schemes. So not advocating for it, but that's something that I think Dolphins fans maybe need to prep for.
Just realized I didn't have the Eiffel Tower lit up. So,
that's one thing, and I want to get your thoughts.
Now, wait a minute. Now, follow up on your point there. The only thing that I see is, unless they don't get the receiver that they need in free agency, and they don't want to depend on it in the draft, then you re-sign Gesicki and you use him as a slot receiver, a big receiver, and you move Waddle outside. And then you try to find somebody else to play also on the edge.
The issue I have with that is that I like using Waddle as my do-it-all receiver. If he's going to be my guy, I love the ability to move him inside, outside, into the backfield. That's one thing I think the previous staff did really well. They found ways outside of using him on the go ball, which I want to see more of the deep routes. But as far as using
that's what I was going to tell you. I think they'll find that other person to play that role, because that role in this offense, that dude's a pinball machine. He's
right.
I don't know if you want Waddle in
right.
that.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I'd rather have Waddle outside and in space, where he's going to be an absolute freaking terror for anybody.
I want to see Waddle in the slot some. I can see him outside, but I definitely want to see him in the slot. The problem, and people always want to look for Deebo Samuel, right? Because that was Mike McDaniel's guy.
Nobody's that guy, dude.
There is no other Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel's unique for a reason. So that's why fans are always like, oh, can we see Jalen Waddle and Deebo Samuel's role? Jalen Waddle's a really good player. He's not Deebo Samuel, and that's fine. They have different skill sets. Deebo Samuel is a really unique player, and you can't find the next Deebo Samuel. Like, they're going to say it in this draft. I guarantee you, Big O, there's going to be somebody in this draft. They're going to say, oh, this guy can be the next Deebo Samuel.
Guarantee.
And I'm 98% sure that guy will not be Deebo Samuel because he's not, that's not that guy. So you can try to say Lynn Bowden has these skill sets. You can try to say this guy from the draft, Jalen Waddle. The true answer is Deebo Samuel is a unique player. And so I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation in those meeting rooms about Gesicki, about what type of receiver do we go after? Is it a free agency? Is it a draft prospect? We know they got Jalen Waddle right. What are the answers on Devontae Parker? What are the answers on Mike Gesicki? Preston Williams is, I think, due to be a restricted free agent coming up. I don't know if you've seen enough from him to tender him a contract. So there could be a lot of turnover.
I got a question. How much? What is the tender for? I mean, Preston is as disappointing as it gets for me already. I've kind of seen enough, but I'm thinking if it's a real minimal contract that you have to guarantee him, I might take the chance with him on that kid if it's minimal.
If I'm correct, and I'll have to look this up. I think he will be restricted. So if so, that might be like somewhere between the $2 to $3 million range, which is probably a little bit more than you want to pay for what he's seen. But he might be a guy that you don't tender and then you try to re-sign him from the minimum.
Right.
But that's an interesting question because you got guys in that room like Albert Wilson or Alan Hearns who I don't know if you've seen enough to come back either. So you can't go into the offseason with one receiver and Jalen Waddle. You got to keep somebody, I think.
No, but I you could keep Bowden, you could keep Waddle, you can keep who am I thinking of here? There's one more guy that I would keep. Hollins. And then you go out, and then
Mac Hollins is a free agent too, so you're gonna have to re-sign him. He's not gonna be
expensive. His hat because he's not gonna be
expensive. Maybe $2-3 million a year, I'm guessing. But he's a core special teams guy and a guy that I think you probably want to have back.
And that's some bitches around the ball all the damn time.
Yep. He's a guy that'd be perfect as your number 4 or number 5 receiver. A guy who, if you need him to start, you feel comfortable with it, and he's a core special teamer. That's a guy that I would definitely prioritize. That's one of those guys you see sign on like the first day of free agency, and you're like, why is Mac Hollins signing for a 3-year, $10 million deal? But that's because a team prioritized that and said, hey, we need this guy back. Even if it's only a $3 million deal, we're going to bring him back. So I'd see them re-signing him.
I am the biggest Mac Hollins fan.
Oh yeah,
I definitely want him back. You don't find players like that can help you in 2 areas, and he's strong in both areas. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that some bitch is clutch, man. I like Mac Hollins a lot, man. I just believe in clutch players, man. Those kind of guys, that's the problem with Preston. Preston hasn't shown me anything clutch. Yeah. And that's all that Mac Hollins does. So if I have to give that $2-3 million contract to Preston, no. I'm giving that one to Mac Hollins. That's definitely the guy.
I am interested if they do bring Preston back, what Mike McDaniel and Wes Welker can do for his game. I know a lot of Preston's issues may be a little bit less physical and more scheme and mental and knowing where he needs to be lined up and doing the right things. Maybe they could simplify things for him to help him out in that realm. Obviously, he needs to stay healthy as well. But I still remember that guy as a rookie where, I remember Xavier Howard telling me this guy's going to be a number 1 receiver. And, we haven't seen it since that rookie year. But I wonder, is it all gone? Or does he just need to be a little bit more specific in how he's used and how he's taught technique-wise? And maybe he's just a guy who runs 3 routes. Maybe you just say, hey, you run 3 routes. This route, and there's nothing wrong. There's guys here in the league who are really good receivers.
Perriman.
That they just run 3 routes.
Brashard Perriman can run only 1 route.
Right. And it's like, hey, focus on these. This is what you do well. Stay healthy, and we'll create a role. It might not be a 70 play a game role, but 30 plays will get you in the red zone. We'll get you on 3rd downs, and you run these three snaps. 3 routes. So I could see that if they're trying to bring him back.
Yeah, Brashard Perriman's apple fell way far from Brett Perriman's tree, bro, because Brett Perriman was, his dad was superior to his son in a big-time way. All right, on the NFL side, I'm sure you saw the Aaron Rodgers IG post. That was the nail in the coffin, right? It's over, right? That's
See, I don't know because how do you know with anything with Aaron Rodgers, Big O? Because you know
he's a weirdo. I got you.
He's the most. I don't even know how to describe Aaron Rodgers.
Say it. He's a weirdo.
This dude. I've never seen somebody at the top of his game like he is. Be such a contrarian on almost everything, and I don't even know if he truly believes these things or if he just says them to cause a stir. Like maybe he truly does. I don't know, but it wouldn't shock me if he does all this stuff for the thing and he goes on Pat McAfee show today and say, I'm coming back. Like, how would that shock you? What are you going to say? It's who he is.
Yeah,
So I did think it was interesting. Like people have already started to do their context clues, and one of the photos is the one game he was missing for COVID, and they showed a picture of him in the national anthem as the missing guy between Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams, and people were saying that's his goodbye, and he's saying a lot of stuff in the past tense. So he's dropped a lot of stuff over the last couple months to say things are getting better. But let's also remember that last offseason things were really bad, and
what's your gut tell you?
My gut tells me that he's back in Green Bay next year.
Oh, my gut tells me he gone.
Really?
He gone.
See, I think that
my gut tells me he was gone last year, and he just played a charade the entire year and yanked people's chains like you were just saying.
Maybe.
And there was just kind of the icing on the cake, and he's out of there, bro.
So
they didn't win it. They didn't win it again this year, so he's gonna leave, bro. He's gonna go. Who's got the next team? Denver, San Fran. I'm on my way.
If Aaron Rodgers leaves, I'd expect him in Denver. I've heard too much bubbling up there. They obviously hired his former OC. That's the connect. I think he's in Denver or Green Bay this year. But the reason why I still think Green Bay is where I'd put my money, if anything, is because recently we've seen some bubbling of quarterback change. But teams have been historically really reluctant to give up on guys who've been franchise quarterbacks. And so although Aaron Rodgers has a lot of power, he's still technically under contract, and they still technically have power to trade him wherever they want. So I think they've done a lot of placating to him. They've signed players that he wanted to sign. They just brought back his old quarterback coach, Tom Clements. And
by the way, when we hired Philbin, I knew several guys in the Green Bay building. They were like, "Why?" I know Tom's a little rough on the edges. They would tell me because apparently Clements is like an old school gruffy guy.
Right.
He goes, "I know he's a little rough on the edges, but man, I would have had Tom Clements over Joe Philbin." All the guys in that building told me if I would have hired somebody, it would have been Tom Clements, the guy that actually develops quarterbacks. Right. That's what they told me back then.
So, yeah, Aaron loves him. I don't think he's coming back for Jordan Love. Like, you're not pulling me out of retirement to coach Jordan Love,
Right.
So,
which, by the way, also tells you how far they think Jordan Love is.
Yeah.
If they're actually willing, because this is his third year now.
Right.
And you're willing to leave him sitting. You cannot leave a first-round quarterback sitting on the bench in year 3, bro.
Yeah,
You'll never find it, because in year 4, if he plays 1 year, most young quarterbacks, you don't find out about them in 1 year. And so then what do you got to do then? You got to tag them right away, and you got to give them all that money. This tells me that their Jordan Love experiment is a failure, actually, at this point for them, that they've seen enough behind the scenes that he must be, because he hasn't played enough to make a determination whether he can play or not. But behind the scenes, it must be a disaster. That's what that tells me. I don't know.
And obviously we saw him that one game. It didn't look good at all.
But I can't judge him on one game, bro.
Yeah, it's just one game. The problem is you got a guy who's been an MVP candidate consistently, and you got a guy who hasn't played much football. So it's like, if you're watching me out there versus the NFL quarterback, like I could have some skills, but I'm not going to be Aaron Rodgers.
Of course.
So I think that the Jordan Love question is going to be interesting, because I don't think you can bring both of those guys back in 2022. So Aaron Rodgers does say he's coming back. Jordan Love into year 3, I think that he ends up being on the trade block. So that's my thought, that one of those guys are gone. Either you re-up Aaron Rodgers' contract and say, hey, we're committing to you for the rest of your career. We're doing you Tom Brady in Tampa. We'll give you a new 3-year deal, whatever. We'll trade it Jordan Love away, and we'll start again on finding a new quarterback in a few years. Or you say, hey, we're starting Jordan Love era right now. That's the 2 options.
Follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe. Catch his work there at the NFL Network, or in South Florida, you catch him exclusively right here on our program. Cameron Wolfe, sir, thank you, my brother. We have
appreciate you, Bigo.
The Wolf Pack.
All right.
There you go. Cam Wolfe, baby.
This is the